प्रधानमंत्री जस्टिन ट्रूडो ने अज लोगों को जानकारी दिंदिया कोरोना वायरस के मौजूदा स्थिति बारे जाणू करवाया। उन्होंने दस्सिया कि किवें सरकार अगे भी इस वायरस के नाल निपटण दे लई रणनीति बना रही है। अगले पड़ाव दे वल किवें वधना है उस ते भी विचार वटांदरा जो है वर्चुअल कैबिनेट रिट्रीट दे विच कीता जा रहा है। वायरस के शुरू होने ते उन्होंने दस्सिया कि कई लोगों ने अपनियां नौकरियां गवा लईआं ते आर्थिकता ते भी इसका बहुत असर पिया है, पर सरकार दे वल्लों उन्हां लोगों की हर तरह की मदद की जाएगी। उन्होंने दस्सिया कि कैनेडा दे कोल वायरस तो बचण दे लई प्लान है। विद्यार्थियों की मदद किवें करनी है, नौकरियां गवाउण वाले लोगों को किवें रोजगार मुहैया करवाउणा है, इस ते फेडरल सरकार ध्यान दे रही है ताकि आर्थिकता नूं लीह ते वापस लिआंदा जा सके।
Earlier this week, we held a 2-day virtual cabinet retreat. We talked about how the virus is progressing across the country, as well as our response so far. Later today, we'll be releasing a public health modelling update on COVID-19 in Canada. We'll have more details then, but for now, I want to give a quick overview. Last week, we said that nationally, the number of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths is declining over time. That is still the case today. The situation is stabilizing in Canada because Canadians did their part and followed public health instructions. But we still have to be very careful. Things can change quickly. As Dr. Tam will explain later, we still have some hotspots in some parts of the country, including in long-term care facilities and agricultural work settings. So as we continue to gradually reopen the economy, we have to remain vigilant. We have to keep following public health advice. To better understand the impacts of COVID-19 on our economy, we will be releasing a fiscal and economic snapshot this afternoon. Minister Morneau will have more to say on this later today, but for now I want to talk about the main takeaways. When the pandemic first hit, a lot of people lost their jobs overnight. They didn't know how they were going to feed their families or pay their bills. Faced with this unprecedented challenge, our government had two options. We could sit back, let Canadians fend for themselves and hope that it would all be over soon, or we could swiftly and substantially choose to support Canadians. We chose to support Canadians. As we measure the cost of helping Canadians, we shouldn't forget that the cost of doing nothing would have been far more to both our health care and our economy. This is not and has not been a time for tightening of belts or for austerity. By building a bridge for Canadians through this crisis, we can and will build a stronger, more resilient Canada. Today, Canada has one of the most ambitious and comprehensive plans to counter the economic impacts of this pandemic. We increased financial support to vulnerable groups like seniors and students. We provided loans to businesses struggling with cash flow, helped employers rehire their employees, and supported those who had lost their jobs. In fact, nearly 11 million Canadians have been supported through the emergency wage subsidy or the CERB. Our government took on debt to reduce the amount that Canadians themselves had to take on. We were able to do this because Canada entered this crisis on strong footing with a net debt to GDP ratio considerably lower than the rest of the G7. Our government was well positioned to be there for Canadians and lay the groundwork for our economy to bounce back. 4 months later, we've slowed down the progression of the virus significantly, and we're now seeing parts of the economy reopen. And historically low interest rates mean manageable borrowing costs as we continue to invest in Canadians and in the economy. Now, the road to recovery will not be an easy one. Some sectors will bounce back more quickly than others. Some people will be able to find work, but others won't right away. But as we move through into this recovery phase, Canadians can count on us to always be in their corner.
ਸਾਡਾ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵੇਖਣ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨ ਲਈ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰੋ ਚੈਨਲ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਤੇ ਨੋਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਲਈ ਬੈਲ ਆਈਕਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਬਟਨ ਤੇ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰੋ।